Okay guys, we're back out in the garage, getting ready to assemble the primary gear and the clutch basket, primary chain, etc. into the JAWA 350. Now in the last little bit we actually put in the clutch gate, the clutch dogs, if you will, for manipulating the gate and the gears, and the gear shift mechanism here, as well as, of course, on the JAWA, it is also the kickstart. So we got the kickstart spring and gear in here as well. So that's what we did on the last episode. Now we need to work on getting the clutch and primary installed. So we've got a new primary chain. I'm not going to put the old primary chain in because it had a fair bit of slack in it. We've also got new clutch springs as well. You can ignore the clutch switch. We'll put that in on the other side, or the first gear switch, I should say. But we'll be putting new springs in there as well. But the very first thing we need to do is I've got the clutch plates here. We're going to put new clutch plates in now. You know, before I took this apart, I assumed the clutch plates were bad. They actually look pretty good. But you know what? I wound up buying them, so we're going to put the new ones in. And the first thing we're going to do before we do anything, we're going to open these up and we're going to soak them in a bit of oil for not a huge amount of time. I've seen some guys online do it for, you know, overnight or a number of hours. I'm taking a different approach. I'm doing it for about 10 minutes, which also is an approach that a lot of guys take. So it's not too radical, but that's what we're going to do. So, you know, I looked, as you do when you're a guy, you look in the kitchen and you think, oh geez, I could use that, I could soak them in that, etc. And then, you know, she who must be obeyed, as long as she doesn't know, we're good. But you know what, I thought maybe I shouldn't risk that. So I've got the basic aluminum foil pie plate here that I don't think anybody's going to object to if I ruin it or use it. So that's what we're going to do. So there's nothing really to this. I've just got some motorcycle oil. I think it makes sense to use motorcycle oil on this. So we're just going to bathe them in some oil here. And then I don't really see any reason why not to reuse this oil. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make sure they all get really nicely coated here. And we're going to do this before we assemble everything, just to make sure. Oh, let's just throw it all in there. What the hell? Yeah. So we're going to stick them all in there. Now the next process is probably the most important one. And that's to walk away and go have another coffee. We're going to leave it 10 or 15 minutes. And then we're going to come back. We'll get the oil off. We'll kind of, you know, rub, you know, get them relatively cleaned off. We're not going to worry about the oil too much, but we want to be able to work this. And then we're going to start assembling everything. So that's going to be the next bit. So we'll see you in about 10 minutes, which for you should take about 10 seconds. Okay, guys, we've let the clutch plates here go in soak now for actually a lot more than 10 minutes. I wound up going up and buying a couple of things at our local automotive place that I think will help me out a little bit here. Some RTV for sealing up the case, and also some oil to eventually start the engine. So, because I realized I was low on it. So it's been probably 40 minutes that they've been sitting there. So we're going to call that good enough. So now, so that I can work with this stuff, I'm going to try to pat them off a little bit and going to dry them off a bit here, and then we're going to go and start to assemble this up. So I'm just going to, you know, do this. I'm not going to worry about it getting them too good here, because, you know, it's all just going into the engine, but just want to make my own life a little bit easier, not having to deal with all this oil as I'm putting it all together. So we'll just let them sit in, drip off as much as we can. And stick them in this other container here. And then we're going to save this other oil because there's nothing wrong with it. It's motorcycle oil, and this is actually the oil I use for my KLX 250, which yeah, I can't quite remember. I think it's 2050 or something like that. But interestingly, I looked up the oil for the JAWA 350, and you know that thing uses 90 weight gear oil? It's the weirdest damn thing. I went and I checked it about 16 times, but so anyways, I went down to our local automotive place, Lordco Automotive, which anybody that's in British Columbia will recognize right away, and picked up some, actually I think it's 8590 gear oil, but it's actually designed for motorcycles, weirdly enough. I didn't know there was such a thing, interestingly. But anyways, that's what we're going to put in the thing when we eventually get it running. All right, so we're going to set this aside. I'm going to go and put this oil back in the container. You don't need to see all that craziness. And then we'll get back after it here. Okay, well actually this oil I'm using that I soaked them in is SAE 1040 motorcycle oil, so that I use for my KLX 250. I think I said 2050, and my memory didn't remember correctly. So anyways, we're just going to see if we can get this kind of cleaned up here. So get this drained off, put her back in the container, and we will use it again because it's clean. There's nothing wrong with it. Just had some clutch plates in it, and you know when it goes back in the KLX 250, it's going to go on clutch plates there too. So we're not going to worry about it. And yeah, so we're going to set all of this aside, and then we're going to go and start the assembly process. Okay guys, before we actually go and put the primary on and the clutch basket, we're actually going to clean these shafts, especially this one, the primary shaft, with a little bit of, in my case, I'm using some rubbing alcohol. The purpose is we want to get off, we want to get the oil off of there, and of course me working on the engine, it's gotten quite oily, and I've seen from other folks that this is one of those things that is a good idea to do, because at the end of the day, a lot of it is, you know, friction on this tapered shaft that's holding this on here. So we're going to clean that up a little bit, just get any oil residue off of it. We'll do the same on this shaft. Now obviously this whole thing is going to be in an oil bath, so how important is that? Probably not terribly, but that's what we're going to do. We'll also get the, you know, the areas of the gear itself here, especially on the primary. I don't think I'm going to worry so much on the clutch basket because it is a spline shaft. But on the tapered shaft for the primary, I'm going to try to get the oil off of there for the most part. Now again, how important is that? Don't know. Something I've seen other people do, so that's what we're going to do. So, alrighty guys, okay, we're now at the point where we're going to see if we can put the primary chain back on the primary gear and also onto the clutch basket to then assemble as one assembly in here and you guys probably know this, but to try to actually go and put the gears on and then put the primary chain on is pretty much impossible. I don't think it's even possible. There is no master link in these chains. This here is the old chain. That's the old chain, and so what the process is going to be is essentially, you know, put it on both pieces and, you know, drop it on. So that's what we're going to attempt to do with the new chain. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, so let's get after that here, and we'll grab the new chain and open her up here. Probably should open this up first, see how easily it just opens up. Oh boy, packaging these days, man. I tell ya. I have to grab a knife here and open this up. Sorry guys, probably should have done that ahead of time, but I want to have you see what the process is. So there is our new chain. Let's take a look at it in relation to our old chain on top here. Or maybe it would be better to have the old chain on the bottom so we can see the difference a little bit better. If there is a difference, maybe there isn't one. Yeah. Well, they look pretty much the same. Yeah. But we're hopeful that this one's a little bit tighter. That's why we got the new chain. So let's stick the old one out of our way here. Grab our new chain. We're going to stick it around clutch basket. Get Put it on the clutch basket there, so that's on. Put it on the primary gear. Okay. Now we have that those two together. We're just going to drop it on. Now there is, I should mention for anyone that's actually working on these, there is a washer here. Okay, so the washer goes on first for the clutch basket. There is no corresponding washer here, although there is, there's some circlips holding the seal in. So this then just gets dropped on there. There's also a bushing inside the clutch basket, and I think that may come out, but when I took this off, it stayed there, and I've just left it there. So that's how this looks. Okay, so now the goal is to just drop this on and see how this goes. Oh, what am I doing? Putting it in the wrong spot. Okay, just drop it on there. Oh, look at that. Look at that, okay? And she all moves nice. Well, and look at that. The tension is now, you can trust me on this. This is a nicer amount of tension. This is quite a bit tighter than what the old chain was. The old chains, they do, as you guys know, chains do stretch over time, so that's part of the issue. So for the primary gear, there is a lock washer, okay? Lock washer and a nut. So we're going to stick that on there finger tight right now. I don't want to lose these things. And then as well, we then go and place on top of this a lock washer. And this lock washer is the one that we had to pound down before, if you recall. Actually, is this all the way on here? Yeah, I guess that is. Just taking a look at this here for half a sec. Yeah, pretty sure this goes on first. Oh yeah, that goes on first. Yeah, okay. So the clutch basket, then our initially the spot where we're going to be putting all the friction plates goes on, then our lock washer, and then our nut. That's how this works. And if you're then what we do is once we get it tightened down, then we go and we lift up this one lock washer, this one washer a bit so that it cannot undo again. So that's how that goes. Oh, and you know what? I don't think this is quite in. We have to get it in. Let's just see here. Okay guys, I think we got that sorted out. So what the issue was that the shaft here was actually, because I don't have the gears in, it was actually falling down into the case a little bit. So I've got it propped up there in such a way that I think it should be fine now. And we're just going to now go and assemble the primary gear and the clutch basket with the primary chain, of course, and just drop them both on there. Now again, we have our washer on here, so it's all ready to go, and we're just going to drop them on. See how that looks. Much better. That's where we want it, right there. So that's really good. Much more comfortable with that. So now the next bit, well, first off, we're just very temporarily put the nut and washer on here. We're then going to take what would you call that piece? I'm sure there's a name for it, but the part that our clutch plates are going to be assembled onto. Put that on there. Now this is actually splined, as you can see, onto the spline shaft, and so we have to have that line up nice, and it does. Good. Then we put our washer on, and this is looks like a little bit of a messed up washer, because it is. This is the one where one side gets knocked up in place so that the nut doesn't loosen off over time. And then we put our nut on. So that's how that works. Okay. So now, before I do too much more, I'm going to grab a socket here and just very carefully tighten that down just a little bit, just by hand. It's a 19-inch socket that we're using here, so just get that as good as we can by hand. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the other side of the case back on, because I don't have it on there right now, and I don't want to leave it in this position for too long. And then we're going to tighten this up, and we'll show you that here in a moment. So now what we're going to do is put the other side of the case on, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, I've got the other side of the case back on. I didn't want to, because it's resting on this side, right? I didn't want it, you know, resting on the shafts or anything like that while we're working on it. So that's why I just got this on basically, you know, a little bit. It's not tightened down yet. I don't want to be, you know, really pushing on this thing or working on when we're on the, you know, on the shafts on the other side. So that's why I just paused it, put the case back on, so now we can actually work on it. So we're going to tighten these down a little bit. And I've already tightened down, well, not tightened down, but just, you know, basically finger tight. Well, we used the socket, just basically, you know, basically tight on the clutch basket. Now we're going to actually tighten up the primary here a little bit. Again, a little bit, as much as we can get it. So yeah, I think that's about as far as we can get it. There's a big lock washer under there, so yeah. Okay. Just making sure the engine is not having any issues here as we're doing this. And it's not, so that's all good. All right, okay, good, excellent. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually, rightly or wrongly, going to use the impact gun here. There is a tool you can use for holding the basket, which I don't have. So I'm going to actually use the small impact to go and actually tighten this and hold it with my hands, which I think I'll be able to do. Let's see. So I'm going to give this a go. This again is, for those that are curious, this is a 19 millimeter. It's probably way wrong, to do that. But it works, so that's good. So that's definitely on there. Now we're going to do the same for the primary. So again, on the primary, this is a 27 mil. Okay, that's on there. So yeah, happy with that. So that's good. Okay, good. Now what we need to do is we need to go and take a screwdriver and knock that washer up on one side. And what's encouraging about it is as you can see, the flat side of the nut here is perfectly in line with where it was bent up before, and that's kind of a little indication to me that we actually have it tight as well. So grab a hammer and a screwdriver, and we're going to see if we can give this a bit of a knock here. Get that knocked up. Get that knocked up. There you go. Yeah, we'll see if we can do that. Okay, let's move this around. It is tough. I'll get that back and I'll bring you back once I got that bit done. Okay guys, so we've got this in here. We've got the little side of the washer pressed up. These are tightened down, both on the primary side and on the clutch basket. So this is all good. And as you can see, you know, the interior piece here goes and runs freely relative to the main primary. So that is as it should be, and that's how our clutch plates are going to go into there. So we've got the old clutch plates as well as the spacers here. These are the new ones. So it starts off, we're just going to do them one at a time here. So this starts off with you know, with a clutch plate at the bottom. So they just drop into here like that. And then we put a metal spacer in there, right? So that goes on. Okay, and then another Another new one, another new clutch piece here. Good, and then a spacer. Okay, and then another one, and you get the idea. Just keep doing this until you use them all up. Now there's actually 5 of the fiber, what would they call them? Fiber clutch plates. These guys, there's 5 of these. So if anybody's rebuilding one, you need 5. Okay, so there we go. Stick that in there. And number 5. Okay, great. Now on top of that goes our clutch plate, along with these little cups. There's 3 little cups. Okay, so that's how that goes. So this goes on kind of like, this is always kind of interesting. You almost need to do these first. So it always seems like, gosh, does this really work? But yeah, it does. Do it like that, and there we go. That goes on like that. Okay, and actually, oops, I missed something. You guys are yelling at the screen, aren't you? So yeah, so this is really rather critical. This is our clutch push rod, I guess you'd say. This is what is going to push, you know, against the clutch plate and either engage or disengage it. Rather a critical piece, so that's got to go on first. Okay, and so that now we put this on. Okay, through those cup holes. That's great. Get in there. Yeah, there we go. She's in there. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So those are all in there as they should be. Okay, and now what we need to do is put our clutch springs in. Now I bought new clutch springs, so we're going to put the new ones in. Okay. So our clutch springs just go in. Oh, that's interesting, eh? Things are brand new and they look a little bit rough. You know, all this stuff comes from, I can't remember where I got these. I've been buying parts from Poland and Czech Republic primarily. Also, I got some from Slovakia and Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and Ukraine. Believe it or not, I got some parts from Ukraine, but I don't believe these are from Ukraine. I think these are from Slovakia. That is a little rougher than I would really like to see, but you know what? They're brand new. We're assuming they're right, so we're going with it. I guess they're just ground down nice and flat so that they've got a flat surface to go against the washer. Because what goes on here now are the washers and then the pins, which I'll show you in the next bit. Because what I now need to do, if you recall when I took this apart, I made a jig to actually compress these springs, because what happens is there's a little pin, there's a hole here, there's a pin that goes through here, so these springs go on, then a washer goes on, then they get compressed, then a pin goes through, and trust me, these are really, really hard springs. It's not easy to do, and I don't want to lose one of those pins. So I'm going to put my jig on here, and then I'll once we get that done, I'll bring you back and we'll put the rest of it together. Okay guys, we are back at it. So now we're going to go and actually put the washers and retainers onto the clutch springs. Now this is the little device that I've created to go and compress those springs for us, and I'll show you how that works. I also created, now I think I showed you this before, but when I took this apart, but I went and what I did is I've got a 11 millimeter socket here that I sacrificed, okay? Hopefully you can see that. I'll put it right here so you can see it. And you can see I have used an angle grinder to go and cut a channel through this where I can insert the little pins, okay? Here's one of the pins, and those pins, take this off so you can see, there's a hole here, so they get compressed and they go through here. So there's a washer that goes on top first. So it goes like this, goes this, spring, then washer, then pin. And they're super hard to go and compress. So what this little device does, that I very crudely welded up, enables you to compress those. So Yeah, I guess the other thing is you're wondering what I'm doing here, screwing in a socket. Well, what I did to go and make that work is I took a nut and put it in the bottom of the socket. See that? So, and this was actually pretty easy. I was able to just because of the size of it, grab a stainless steel nut I had, so it's a hard nut, and just file down a couple of the inches and just drive it in with a hammer. It's not welded or anything, but it works great. So just the way that is. So that's how I did that. And the rod that goes in here, this is M8 rod, and this is actually an M6. I don't suppose anybody really cares too much about that, but if you really wanted to make one of these up, that's what I found worked well for me. So put the washer in here, okay, and we'll put that down on top, okay. And actually, I guess it would make sense to look and see where the hole is here first. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so we'll get the hole lined up with our slot here before we do this. And we'll carefully put our spring on top, okay, then our washer. And we're going to slowly start compressing these. So we'll just get them finger tight here initially. Now, initially when I did this, I thought, oh, I could just, use a screw this down, but of course when you do that, then it turns the angle of the socket. So you have to, I mean, you don't have to, but the way I'm doing it is tightening these guys down, okay? So it's a little bit of a tedious process, perhaps, but you know what? It's, trust me, way easier to do this. You can already see we're compressing that a little bit. I don't know if you can see that in here, but we're compressing it down. Let's try to do these equally. I've got two of these wrenches, so why not use two of them? Yeah, this one has to go this way though, because it's not. Oh, this one does reverse too. What am I thinking? Great. Oh, we're just about there. Look at that. Just about there already. Clearly, these rods that I've used don't need to be this long. I mean, these things that I've got are probably, in fact, they are. They're a foot long each, but I'm expecting I'll be using this for something else. So I see our hole is slightly not. Oh, look at that. Once I go move it, maybe not quite. I'm just going to grab a little something to go and straighten that out. So I'm just grabbing a little jeweler's screwdriver here to get in the hole and get this dead straight. Oh, look at that. That works like a hot damn. Okay, great. Now, here are the pins that go in. I don't know if you can see that, but these pins have a shoulder on them, right? So here, let me get my hands out of the way and try to show you this way. So hopefully you can kind of see that. So you need to get it in through there, and then and so that's that center part, which is smaller in diameter, is what it actually rides on. So now we can just very carefully put this through here and just reverse the process. So just looking on the other side here. For whatever reason, that's not going straight, going cleanly through for me. So I'm just going to straighten this out a little bit more. I think it's probably my inaccurate grinding. I know this works because I took them off this way. Ah, there we go. Now I can feel it's through there, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's good. Okay. We're going to give that a go, and then once we take the tension off it, we'll take a look at it and see. So, this is the one that doesn't reverse. Okay. I knew I had one of these wrenches that doesn't reverse. Take our tension off. It's already loose. Is this one already loose too? Oh, it didn't take much, did it? Okay. So let's take a look and see what we did here. Actually, I don't need to do that. What am I doing? We'll just turn this. And you know what? I don't know if she's quite all the way through. Let's take a look here so we can take a look. Oh yeah, She is. Look at that. That's perfect. So you see that? She's in there. Nice. So now all we need to do is just turn the engine to do the next one. So I've got this engine apart, so I've got to get the piston to cooperate with us a little bit here. Play nice. Yeah, I think about there somewhere, right? Can get this back in. Didn't need to take. Oh, no. That's what we just did, Charles. Let's move this over here. Get that out. This over to here. Just turning the engine here. The pistons are out, so it's a little getting that lined up. There we go. That looks pretty good, eh? Okay, great. So same process again. Now I'm not going to bore you with watching all of this, but this is what we're doing. We're going to do exactly the same process as we did before. Washer. Okay. Put this on. Tighten finger tight. Well, it kind of goes the same, but you want to get this relatively even on both sides, you know. Is there a better way to do this? Probably. But this way works, and I'm not springing stuff all over the floor, so. Grab our other one here, grab our other wrench. These ratcheting wrenches are really nice, eh? I know some guys don't like them, because they say they break. I have reefed on these things, I've never broken one yet. I have a combination of Craftsman and Gear Wrench ones. That's what I use. And I see I don't, you know what I forgot? I didn't get the hole lined up nicely there like I did on the other one. So we're going to have to move that. Hopefully we can move it with our jeweler's screwdriver to line up with the hole in our socket. Oh, look at that. It just rotates super easy once you get this opened up. Nice. Let me get that down a little bit more. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. I hope that you can. So yeah, because that's part of the process here. So we'll get our little pin in there. There's our pin again with the shoulders. Get it in there in a nice sort of equidistant sort of. Oh yeah, that one's going there much nicer. I like that. Okay. Take some tension off this thing. Oh yeah, this one's got a ratchet. Okay. Loose. This one's loose. Give us some room here. Get this thing off. And yeah, there she is. A little bit more. So we can turn the engine. Ah, now that one isn't as centered as I'd like it to be. So you know what, we're gonna. Well, I wonder if I can just hit it with a hammer. 2 seconds. I've got a really little hammer. It's not exactly centered, so I'm just going to see if I can. Oh yeah, perfect. That's perfect. Okay, good, nice. Because the goal is, again, you want these centered, right? Those pins to be dead centered. So good. Okay, now we're gonna. What's the best way? We'll move it back this way, maybe. Oh, too far. Oh, not far enough. What am I doing? Okay, right there. Okay, there's our next one. There's our third one. Okay, so again, let's try to do this the way we were thinking. Get that lined up, kind of, with our hole in the socket. Get our spring in there. Get our top washer. Okay. Put this on here nicely. Finger tight. And then we'll grab our ratcheting tools here. On here. start compressing. Try to get my hand out of the way. This whole filming thing as you're doing work is not something I'm terribly used to, so. Oh yeah, I think we've got that nicely exposed now. Okay. Okay, and our pin, I'm going to stick that through there. Oh yeah, perfection. That is nicely centered. Start undoing it a bit. By the time we get the last one done, we're getting expert at it. And of course, this is probably the last one I'll ever do on a JAWA, but hey, that's okay. Well, that one's loose. This one is too. I think so, yeah. Okay. All right, so that's great. So there, oh, gee whiz, we didn't do that well at all, did we? Look at that one sticking right out. Okay, well, this is what happens. What were we saying? We're getting really good at it? Yeah, it's a fatal flaw. I don't know how quite we did that, but it sprung out of there somehow. So that's okay. We'll just continue on with the process here. How did I not notice that? You guys probably saw it, eh? That it was falling out of there at the back. I didn't see it. Can we get that in there now? Yeah, we can. Now don't come out of there this time. I don't quite know how that happened. I think it probably must have been on an edge or something and it just sprung out of there. Loose. Loose. It looks like we're centered now. Okay, so we can just unscrew our jig here now. Just take the whole thing off and then we'll take a look and see what the end result is. As we found out, if those things are not quite dead centered, we can readjust them a little bit with a small hammer, which is great. But we're going to have a good look at them here. There's one out. There's two out. Okay, good. Get rid of this. Don't need that anymore. It has served its purpose. And we'll take a look here. So let's just have a little look at what we did. So, yeah, those are all looking in there nice and straight. So, getting a little bit anal here, but just make sure those are in where they need to be. And yeah, oh, they all are. That's perfect. Okay, great. Well, I'm happy with that. Hopefully that little trick helps somebody with this process. So yeah, it's all looking pretty good, I think. Okay, good. Okay, on to the next thing. And what will the next thing be? Well, we're gonna put the cover on here because this side is now essentially complete. But we're not going to seal it yet, just because of, you know, a little bit of paranoia that maybe we have to take this apart for some reason when we do the gears on the other side. Don't think so, but we're going to place the, in fact, actually, let me show you. Let me show you. Went and shined these up a little bit. So, yeah, so shine these up a little bit, the covers. So we're going to, I'm going to have to raise you up a little bit here, so just hang on with me here a little bit. I have to adjust the camera a little bit. But yeah, I'll tip you down a bit so you can see what's going on. Okay, and so yeah, so here's what we did, going and cleaning these up just a little bit. Now, is it perfect? No, not really, but I did shine them up a little bit with a buffing wheel and some red rouge out in my workshop. So you'll notice that there is a slot here, and that's to drive the 2-cycle oil pump. Okay, so this has got oil injection, so this has got a flat tab on it, and it goes and seats into there. So we need to line those up so that they mesh when this goes on. So again, we're just putting it just, yeah, like that. That's it. Is that all the way on there? It's a little bit of a, it's a little bit interesting to know that you get that on. Ah, there you go. Now it's on there properly. So that looks pretty good. Quite nice. So yeah, so we're going to put just a couple of bolts in here just to hold it temporarily while we work on the other side and start working on the gears. So assembling the gear case side of this engine is now going to be the next step. Okay guys, back out in the garage here. We've taken a look and yeah, really happy with all of this. So before we get too get too much going on the gear side, we're gonna seal up the primary side here. So what we're using is some Loctite 587 RTV blue silicone. This is really just silicone sealer, and we're gonna use just a little bit of it here on each side of the gasket. So here's the gasket, and we're going to use a little bit of this sealant on both sides for this. So that's going to be the plan. Now I know a lot of guys normally kind of either use a gasket or you use sealant, but in this case, when I look, most people are doing this on the primary side. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to just go ahead and put a small bead of it. We're not going to get too crazy with this stuff. Yeah, and just see how this goes. So we're going to do a little bead around the perimeter here. And I'm just going to nip this end a little bit wider because it's just a little bit on the thin side there, so a little bit hard to get out. See what that does for us. Alrighty, let's see what that does for us. Makes it a little bit easier. Oh yeah, happy with that. Coming out quite a bit easier. Try to get myself out of the way so you can see what I'm doing here. So this JAWA has been quite an experience for me. I'm quite enjoying working on it, although it is a bit of a challenge. One of the biggest challenges, I'm not a natural mechanic. I typically look at online and manuals and information to try to kind of get some insight into it, and there's very few decent videos in English on this thing. Very, very few. In fact, even trying to get information in English at all, manual form or any other way, is hard. So that's been a bit of a challenge. One thing that's really cool though, and you guys probably know this, but YouTube now has the ability where you can take, videos in any language and have the subtitles translated into any language. Where the subtitles work, I found a few videos where subtitles generally don't work at all, but yeah, That's pretty cool. So, you know what? Bottom line, I've been watching some Russian videos or Ukrainian videos, both, because these bikes are quite popular over there. So, anyways, okay, so we've got the RTV around there. We've got it around, the bolt holes in each spot. Um, Looks relatively consistent and okay. So we're just going to place this on, making sure we have it in the correct orientation before we drop it on there. And we do. And we're just going to seat it on there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a small bit of silicone on the top side as well. And again, I'm doing it this way because, again, when I'm watching other people do this, this is the standard way on this side of the case, on the primary side of the case. Interestingly, on the gear side of the case, you don't use a gasket at all, and you just use sealant. And for that, I'm going to use an anaerobic sealant for that. But for this, we're using this Loctite silicone 587. So there we go. So we've got it on that side. Now we're just going to continue the process here. Apologies, I'm going to be in your way. And again, we're not going to put too much on here. I suspect on the case side, I actually probably put a little too much. And that's part of the reason I'm doing this is, is learning. In fact, the only reason I tinker on stuff for the most part is just for fun and to learn, You'll learn as you go. Try not to make too many mistakes as you go, but that's part of life, right? So some people say, why do you like to tinker with stuff? Because I won't tell you what my job is, but my job essentially is sitting at a desk all day, right? So, so this is quite different from what I do for a living. Quite different. People ask you, why do you do that? And I say, well, it's not a lot different than doing puzzles, right? I mean, a lot of people will buy a puzzle and do puzzles sitting at the kitchen table or dining room table doing a puzzle. If you think about it, an engine or anything mechanical for that matter is just a big 3D puzzle. That's all it is. So I would say that, for people that wonder why am I doing this, well, it's really no different than why people do puzzles, right? It's a kind of a fun thing to do. It's quite different from what I do for a living, very different. And that's the attraction, right? It lets me just unwind and just decompress and not think about spreadsheets and numbers and profitability and margin and EBITDA and all those wonderful things and just move into, something entirely different. So that's kind of why I do what I do here, which, admittedly don't do very well, but again, I'm just doing it to learn and just doing it for fun. So now we've got that on there. The next bit is to just put the case on. Before we do that, and I did do that off camera on this side, is I actually went and used a rag and some alcohol to clean all the oil off the surface. And I'm going to do that to this surface as well because RTV doesn't like to stick very well to oily surfaces, and that's a very oily surface at the moment. So we are going to just grab some paper towel. Now a rag would probably be better than paper towel, frankly, but I don't have one of those handy at the moment, so we're just going to do this. And I'll do it a couple of times. I want to get it as clean as I can. Now it's clean. I'd cleaned it off before, right? In terms of getting the gasket material off and all those sorts of things. But again, what we're trying to do is just get that residue off. Now, brake cleaner would be the ideal thing here as well, obviously. It doesn't have to be isopropyl alcohol that I'm using. brake cleaner would be just as good, if not better. So whatever you got to do the job. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to pop this on. Now again, to get this on there, we have to make sure this is in the correct orientation. This is the little tab that actually actuates the oil pump, right? That actuates the oil pump. Here's the little tab. I have a feeling I wasn't showing you on camera there. So there's the tab. So because I haven't moved it since I took it off, I think it's already in the right orientation. So I'm not going to touch it. And we're just going to place this on here. See what happens. Okay guys, we're going to give this another shot. What the issue was is that the gasket was getting hung up on one of these studs here. So we've got her back on there, so we're going to give her another go. So we'll see what happens here. Try to get this carefully without mucking it up too badly. And look at that, she's on there, just like that. Awesome, so now we'll just grab the bolts and tighten her down. So, yeah, so that's really good. So, I think what we'll do is we're going to tighten this down, but not ridiculously tight, and then we'll give it a couple of hours, and then we'll give it another turn down. So that'll be kind of what we'll do here. So we'll get a couple of bolts started. But I won't bore you by having you watch me put bolts in. So we'll just put a couple of these in here. Finger tight a little bit, grab a screwdriver, and yeah, get her started. So might make sense to have this other one here diagonally here first off, so we'll do that, stick it over here. Okay. Okay, so I've decided to, so that's on there. We're going to put the rest of the bolts on there like I mentioned, but basically this side's done. So we've got new primary, new clutch plates. So this side's totally good. So now what we're going to do is I did just place an order for some new pistons and rings as well. So we're going to do that as well. We might as well. I was thinking about it, thought, oh, what the heck. Might as well do the whole job. So yeah, we're not going to rehone the cylinders at all because they look really good, but we are going to put some new pistons and rings. And I was just going to get the rings, but you know what? Pistons and rings are almost the same money. It's the shipping that costs when you're buying these parts, not the parts themselves. So might as well. What the heck? So they should be here for next weekend. So hopefully, maybe next weekend we'll have this thing together. Gosh, I hope. So yeah, so that's it for this one, guys. I hope everybody's doing super good, and yeah, keep the rubber side down. Bye for now.